Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the toughness. Tell me and our audience, what's a couple or one of your favorite stories about owning a business? What are some of just the blessings and great things that have come out of it?
Great people. I've met a lot of amazing people. I've made great friends, even just people that have worked with me. I still have great relationships with them. I think owning a business, one of the biggest blessings has been to be more involved and understanding that my kids can probably not necessarily want to be in my business, right? Like my daughter, she probably doesn't want to do that. My son, he's there, but it may only be temporary. And I've learned to accept that, which is fine. I don't need them to come and take over my business and go with it. I've learned that everybody has the right to find who they are as an individual. Not everybody's going to make it in trucking. Not everybody's going to make it in the oil field. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings that I've discovered within myself. I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at it, and I enjoy the thrive. I enjoy giving myself these little goals. Patty, this week, you got to go get 3 new customers, girl. I enjoy the challenge. Most importantly, now that I've kind of been a little bit more, I like to go to the Petroleum Club with some friends and I get to meet other CEOs, owners of other companies. I've got to the point where I can put myself in other rooms that has now benefited everybody that works with me.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we discuss how to build highly valuable companies that you eventually sell to fulfill your personal and wealth goals. I'm joined by a really fun person on my guest today, Patty Rodriguez, who is the CEO of GreyHawk Oilfield Trucking. She's been running a successful business for a lot of years. And honestly, we're in oil and gas as well. It is either feast or famine. It's a really hard business, and trucking is even harder. So you pull oil field with trucking, and it's a really difficult combination, and you got to be a pretty incredible person to do that. So Patty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Oh,
really
this is going to be a lot of fun.
It.
So we've got all kinds of different ways we can go into this, but being an entrepreneur is hard. Being a female entrepreneur is hard, or being a female entrepreneur in oil and gas is like the trifecta. So tell us tell us your story of how you got into this, how you've been successful, and we'll just roll from there.
Well, as you know, oil and gas is a man's world. So it is hard. It's tough. In trucking, which makes it a little more challenging. I got into trucking through my ex-husband. He was a winch truck driver. Originally, my grandparents were business owners. And as I was growing up, I got to see a little bit of their freedom, right? I didn't see them so attached to certain things. And that was one thing that I really wanted to chase. I wanted to have a little bit more time on my hands. I wanted to be able to be a part of my kid's life. And that's really why we decided to explore and get into trucking back in 2014.
I love it. So let's go backwards. What were your grandparents? What type of businesses has your family been in historically?
So my grandmother had a restaurant.
Oh, nice.
She had a restaurant, north of
Another
Odessa,
really
Texas.
That's such a tough business too. You guys just picked the toughest businesses to run.
And then my grandfather, he had a Firestone tire company. Cool. So he was always changing out tires, And I saved one of his business cards from many, many years ago. And I keep it all the time in my desk because it's just kind of like symbolic to me. If he did it back then, I could probably do it now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the lessons growing up? Because my grandpa is an entrepreneur too, and he's 96. He's just a good friend of mine and a mentor. and I'm trying to spend as much time as I can. He lives in Dallas. We fly out a lot just to sit with him. But as you think back about your childhood, what are some of the lessons that they taught you? And I was reflecting with my wife this weekend, and I was like, my grandpa, he was old, hard German. I think he hugged me like 3 times when I was a kid. But he took me alongside to do things, and he didn't even like teach me like, hey, Chris, pay attention. It was just he did the things well with integrity, and I picked it up just by osmosis. So how was your experience growing up with your grandparents?
My grandparents were amazing. My grandmother was the come in, have a seat, let me cook for you. My
Mm.
grandfather was a little quieter, but we couldn't stay at their house if we weren't picking weeds, or or helping trim, the rose bushes, or helping him clean the backyard. They really taught me that the only way to learn things is by using your hands. He would always tell
Mm.
me that. If you want to learn something, you need to use your hands. And I still use that to this day, especially with my trucking company. I had no clue about the engines, the oils, the tires, the transmissions, anything like that. And I kept remembering that, hey, Patty, you need to use your hands. And I did. Jumped in a truck, figured it out. I'm not perfect, I'm not a mechanic, but I understand the concept now. So,
I
yeah.
love that. That's really good
Yeah.
advice. I think a lot of times people, especially kind of younger generations, are like, well, I can just buy a business and work it remotely. And I'm like, no, you need to learn it, because it's you're the one backing that debt, right? You're the only one in charge there. If something goes wrong, it's ultimately responsible to me, to whoever
Me.
is the business owner. And if you don't get your hands dirty, now that doesn't mean eventually you transition out of that, because you got to lead the business, but you've got to know
Right.
how the business is run. I love that. That's
Yeah, for
amazing.
sure.
Okay, so tell us more about the business. So you and your husband started, and then things continue to progress. All of a sudden, you're in charge of this thing. Walk us through some of those stories.
So originally, I come from the money side. My career was loans. I worked for a company called Security Financial, moved up the chain super quick. By the time I was 25, I was a regional manager traveling to Mexico. It was just a lot of movements, but I learned very young how to deal with money. Then my ex-husband one day is like, you know what? Let's just do our own trucking company. Honestly, I didn't want to. And he'll tell you that to this day. She didn't want to do it. I was like, nah, I'm comfortable. I have a great career. I was nervous about even the thought of losing. And I believed in him, and we took off with it. During the pandemic, that was a huge shift because we only had 3 trucks, and we really considered just parking them and selling them off and doing away with it. But I had just left my career of 15 years. So I had to really, really have a little conversation with myself about giving up. I didn't have anything to back me up anymore. So I said, I'll handle it. Let me step in. Let me figure it out. And started running 2 trucks during the pandemic. I think in 2022 is whenever things started to take off. I brought in ideas because trucks, you really don't make money with trucks. You really don't. And I knew I needed another service. So we implemented washouts, frac tank rentals, and things started going great, right? We were running 5 trucks at the time and doing our washouts. We had a great company that we were really dedicated to. And we were with them probably about 5 years. 5 years. During that time, I went through a lot of heartache. Divorce hit me in the end of 2021. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was looking for options to sell off. I parked some of the trucks, kind of minimized our operations because I was not used to being in the yard, wasn't used to understanding how to run a fleet. So at the time, during divorce, and I had to divorce my husband from my personal life, but then I also had to divorce him from my business life.
Mm.
And that was so hard to juggle with kids in between and family kind of wanting to come in and support, his decisions. And it was probably the hardest time in my life, you know, but I didn't stop. I bought me some FR clothes, probably most expensive clothes I've ever bought, but bought me some FR clothes, got me some little Timberland boots, went out to the field, and I told my two drivers, I said, listen, I got to figure it out. So I'm going with you every day to work. If you're out, I'm going with you. If you're out, I'm going with you. And that's what we did. Whether it was in a hot shot truck, it was in a winch truck. Washes were easy because, the guys kind of handled that. But I really had to figure out what these trucks did. And one of my biggest pet peeves was they were always having an issue. And that has always been the hardest part. And a lot of people say, you got to maintenance them, I get all that. But at the same time, whenever you're trying to balance drivers that come in because you're a small company, right? And you train them, you put all the effort into them, and they learn through your truck, they go off into a bigger company. But then I have to clean up all of the mess that they left with my truck.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing I caught on to very well. Very well, very, very well. Yeah. So being in the field, being in the oil field, being on frac locations, pulling units, started to meet people. We have probably an MSA with 80% of oil companies because we've been around for so long. But I just didn't have the manpower to go out there and say, hey, listen, I'm here. I want to come back and service, in the areas that you need us. So downgraded my business and stuck to two drivers and two wash guys. And I learned it. Then started to kind of implement more people, I brought in this older gentleman, great guy, came in and helped me with the operations. My sister, she is also part of GreyHawk, and she has always helped me with the billing up until I said, okay, it's time for you to help with the dispatch. So just little by little, I've learned that this industry is extremely hard. And a lot of people probably would disagree with me because I'm a female, but I have trucks and I'm in competition with a lot of men that have winch trucks. Winch trucks seems to be like the muscle in the oil field. Everybody just loves the winch trucks. And there comes this female with her winch trucks, and they're just like, so that has been hard to overcome just because they probably think I don't know what I'm talking about, or something to do with the trucks or the equipment. And I don't always know, but I like to take pictures, right? And I like to kind of go back to my little notes to remember what it was, what happened here, what caused this. So today we are running 13 trucks now.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
So
still, yeah,
can I ask you a question?
go for it.
Because 2020 to 2023 was also the hardest kind of 2-3 years of our lives. And maybe for everybody listening, I don't know, there's just so much chaos and a lot of things happening personally and with health and with business. But as you get, now that we're in 2026, well, I guess two questions. One, can you look back and even feel like, hey, there's some things that I learned and benefited me, or is it still too fresh? And if so, what are some of the things that, as you look back, you're like, man, I wouldn't want to go through that again, but I took these things out of it?
There's several things, but to be honest, I had to go through them, whether it was good or bad, whether it was, the financial struggles or the wear and tear on my trucks or the customers that really didn't believe in me because, transitioning from, my ex-husband running the company to me coming in, there's nothing that I regret. I lost two trucks during the timeline, an accident, bad choices of people that I hired, lost a lot of money, honestly, during the time. It was necessary. It was necessary. I think sometimes in life we kind of sit here and we don't want to risk anything, right? Like I told you from the very beginning, I didn't want to risk it because I don't like to fail. And I definitely don't want to fail for myself. But that fear is like non-existent now in my world. And I know that God is always going to make a way. And everybody that was in my path during this time, whether it was a good relationship, a bad relationship, or whatever came out of it, I needed that. I needed that because now I know what I'm not going to do in the future, right? Or what little red flags to pick up when I'm doing hires. I think most importantly, understanding that I have the right to disappoint myself sometimes.
That's so good. Yeah, I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, and most people are money focused, right? I want to buy this or do this because of the money. And I'm like, in this book that I wrote, Selling Main Street, on kind of how to position your business to sell, I'm like, really, the value you get from owning a business? I mean, revenue is good and cash flow is good, but that's really kind of an outcome of doing business well. But the thing you get is you become dang near invincible. Like if you own a business and you will go through some really hard things if you own a business, doesn't matter what industry it is.
Oh, yeah.
If I talk to a business owner, the things that they're like, wow, there's something really hard in my life. It's like, we just got sued. Our truck just crashed into somebody. Like big things, right? Like big
I've been
things.
through that.
Yeah.
I've been through that.
When I talk to non-entrepreneurs, which there are a lot in my life, and their world is falling apart because their kid didn't get into the right school or something. I'm like, that is not a real thing to be that concerned about.
Oh,
you know, here are real, objectively real problems, here are not. But when you're a business owner, you build this invincibility that follows through all of the things and especially if you're a person of faith, which I am, and I can tell you are based on your comments, you realize, hey, I can control these things and these things are important, but if my family's good and they're healthy and my relationship with God's good, well, you know what? The rest of it doesn't matter. It'll get solved over a 5 to 10 year period. We'll work out those problems. And when I was younger, those things, right? A little thing, a $10,000 issue would have kept me up all night for days. Now it's like, oh, you know, let's make sure it doesn't happen again, but you know,
figure it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the toughness. Tell me and our audience, what's a couple or one of your favorite stories about owning a business? What are some of just the blessings and great things that have come out of it?
Great people. I've met a lot of amazing people. I've made great friends, you know, even just people that have worked with me. I still have great relationships with them. I think owning a business, one of the biggest blessings has been to be more involved and understanding that my kids can probably not necessarily want to be in my business, right? Like my daughter, she probably doesn't want to do that. My son, he's there, but you know, it may only be temporary. And I've learned to accept that, which is fine. I don't need them to come and take over my business and go with it. I've learned that everybody has the right to find who they are as an individual. Not everybody's going to make it in trucking. Not everybody's going to make it in the oil field. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings that I've discovered within myself. I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at it, you know? And I enjoy the thrive. You know, I enjoy giving myself these little goals. Patty, this week, you got to go get 3 new customers, girl. I enjoy the challenge. Most importantly, now that I've kind of been a little bit more, I like to go to the petroleum club with some friends and I get to meet other CEOs, owners of other companies. I've got to the point where I can put myself in other rooms that has now benefited everybody that works with me. And I feel so blessed to be able to say I have 18 families that get to eat off of GreyHawk and live great lives. Not just myself and my kids, but everybody else that works for us.
Yeah, I think that is such a thing to be proud of. In the faith community, there's this kind of theme, which I don't agree with, which is kind of like, hey, build a big business and then like give it all away and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, actually, I think God is honored by us running a good business and blessing other people's families just by employing them. And that's it. Now, if you can give more, great. If you're called to do that, great. If you end up selling your business and giving it all away, if God calls you to do that, that's between you and God. But I think there's such an honor by providing employment. We started our first business in 2012, my wife and I, and I'm like, man, we've had dozens, if not hundreds of employees that have come through our companies. And I know that they've all been blessed in some form or fashion. They may not have stayed with us a long time, but I
Right.
know they've been blessed by something that they learned, or even just our intensity for life. And I think that's just such an honorable thing as a believer, that, work is honorable and employing people is honorable. A question that we love to ask our potential clients is, do you know what your business is worth? And if you sold your business today, would it fulfill your personal and financial goals? If you're a successful business owner, but you don't know when or how to sell your business, and if you've ever wondered what each additional day in your business is actually costing you, we'd love to chat. If you're ready to spend more time with your family, your friends, or traveling, come sit down with our team, because when you work with exceptional business advisors, we'll help you build a blueprint to sell your business successfully and help you create, capture, and achieve your dream life. Don't wait for the right time. The time's now. Go ahead and scan the QR code or book a discovery appointment at excoadvisors.com. I want to back up. So I was talking to my son. We were out in the forest hanging out, riding dirt bikes this weekend. And he's 10, and so he doesn't really know all what's going on. But we started talking about business and what he, hey, your mom and I do this thing, and we've got these things that are growing into something pretty amazing, and just starting to have a conversation around that. But how would you want your kids to see your role in entrepreneurship, and also what are the things you tell them to give them freedom to know, hey, you don't have to, this is not your future. You don't have to do this. However, you're invited into this, if it makes sense. How have you had that conversation? I think it's really important.
Oh, I've had it several different times, especially with my son. I've told him many times, this is my career. It is my business, but it is my career, and it doesn't have to be yours. And you have a choice. I want him to be his own person, have his own identity, just the way I want my daughter to have her own identity. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all if they don't want nothing to do with my business. And I just make them understand, like, just because it's my company does not mean I don't have a responsibility or a position to fulfill for GreyHawk.
For sure. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
good. Okay. So let's talk about young entrepreneurs, because that's really my passion. I love helping people that are kind of 10 years younger than me make a decision whether entrepreneurship is a fit or not. And then once they're in it, just helping them scale. If you could tell a 25-year-old looking to start or buy a business, which track would you take? Or would you even encourage a 25-year-old to get into entrepreneurship? How would you approach that? So somebody is at church and they say, hey, Patty, I just love what you do and you're so admirable, and I think I want to be you one day. How would you approach that conversation?
I think my first question would ask them, how much self-discipline do you have? Working for yourself is not easy. And if you are not disciplined enough, you'll fail. That would be my most important question.
How did you learn self-discipline? Because I agree with you. That's one thing that I see lacking in so many people. They can do it for a month, maybe 2 months, but we're like, hey, we're doing this for the rest of our lives. How did you pick that up?
I really think it came from my career. So I was on a schedule, right? I've been with them since I was 18 years old. I started as an assistant, so I had a schedule, a responsibility. My children, I was married very young, and I had my children very young. Their father worked a lot in the oil field, so he was gone half of the time. So my biggest focus was my career, right? And my kids. And I think it was like 2014. Yeah, 2014. When we started GreyHawk, then I started to run two. I had so many employees with Security Financial. I had probably like over 100 employees. And then I started the trucking company, which really made me schedule my time out, especially on the weekends. I didn't really have a lot of time for my personal life, which was not really important because my personal life was my children and my husband at the time. And I stayed very structured, very, very structured with everything we did, with every move we did. Today, I'm still self-disciplined, but I'm a little older and I move a little slower. So sometimes I feel like I procrastinate in areas, right? I mean, it
You're
just
like, I
comes with
got
it.
this, so I'll just put this off till
Yeah.
tomorrow. I know I can
Let
get
me
that
just put on my
done.
sticky note, right?
That's funny.
But it's a choice. And sometimes we won't choose that choice if we can choose it ourselves. If somebody puts it on us, right? We're going to do it because we're responsible and we're going to be held accountable. But when you're doing it for yourself, it's a choice.
For sure.
And
Okay,
yeah.
I have a different question that you just alluded to. So
Okay.
we sell businesses, buy and sell businesses, and oftentimes we get buyers that are like, "Hey, I worked for so and so company and I had 50 employees under me, and so I know exactly how to run a business and I can run it." And what we found is that is not correct. Having employees when you're an employee is a totally different thing than having employees when you are the employer and you are the one actually cutting the paycheck. Walk me
Hmm.
through that transition a bit.
Oh
Is
man.
that accurate, or did you see it different?
Very different. Very different. I never walk into my yard like if I'm the owner. My employees will never see me unless I'm dressed for work or I'm dressed for the field work. And I've always believed, and you have to set the expectation of what you do and who you are. The reason I do that is because it's easy for employees to come to you, right? Sometimes they expect a little bit of comfort in areas that are just not where you really want to be. So I've learned to have those boundaries, especially with employees, right? It was hard when I first took over because it was only like five of us. So I was on a daily basis dealing with them every day, every day. And then when I transitioned and pulled somebody in to take over them, that was a hard break. They wanted to keep coming to me. And the difference of owning and being an employee, I think, is probably where employees want to kind of come to you. They need a shoulder to cry on. They need help with something, or they want to overstep boundaries with their direct person. That was probably one of the hard things for me to deal with. They come to me and share stories with me. Then I go to my ops guy, and it was a whole different story. Other than that, I don't think the transition for me hasn't really been anything more than that. I haven't really been in the position of a owner and kind of letting it run on its own yet because I've always been involved.
But okay, so digging in a bit deeper. So when you were an employee with the bank, right, with employees underneath you, how
Hmm.
did that feel compared to being the employer with no
Mm.
like bank president or bank owner that you could call if something goes really badly? How did that transition feel?
A lot heavier
Mm, that's
because
a
in
good
the
word.
oil field, your cash flow can be a really, really, really big problem, especially when you're doing work and you don't get paid till 60 or 90 days down the line. So financial stress is a lot more today than it's ever been because I have to figure out how to continue to keep my company operating while I'm waiting for payments to come through to help us with our cash flow. So that is the hardest thing. That's really, really the hardest thing. And I think that's why a lot of businesses or even business owners just kind of like want to give up. I wanted to give up so many times. Not even gonna lie to you. I was about to close the doors on so many occasions because it is tough. It is so tough. And I'm not using anybody else's money. You know, I have to use GreyHawk's money and I have to make it work. And I need to make sure my payroll is covered every week. And so are my bills. Performance wise, it's a lot more stressful for me because when I see our numbers kind of trickling on ourselves, I'm ready just to pack up and hurry up and get to Midland and figure out why they're not moving or what they're doing. So, a lot more stressful in that area because working for another company, you don't really have to worry about all that stuff. You just got to worry about the performance of the employees. And I have to worry about the performance, the financials, my children, myself. So, it is a lot heavier.
Okay. So this was a question that we had pre-filled, so it was perfect. So it is stressful, right? How do
Hmm.
you deal with stress and anxiety running a business? What are some things that have been useful to you over the years in business?
I like the quietness. I like to be left alone. When my cup is overfilled, I literally just need to be left alone. Whether it's take myself somewhere for a day or two, I like nature. So I'll probably take a hike, take a run, or just lay out in the sun. But I would prefer to be extremely introverted whenever I'm going through things. Don't want to really conversate with much people. A lot of my friends tell me you're like a turtle, Patty. We know when something's wrong because you like kind of crawl back into your shell. But it's it's needed. And I like to try and keep my mind and my body clean in everything that I do. And sometimes I just need to detach from the entire world and have nothing to do with exactly what is in my household, my kids and phone calls from work. But I really have to literally detach myself from everything and everybody.
I love that. I think that's really helpful. We try to do Sabbath as a family, but also a phone Sabbath. And it could be
Hmm.
Saturday or Sunday, whatever fits. But just, hey, all right. And I'm not militant. I might check my phone like once in the middle of the day and once at the end of the day, just in case somebody,
Hmm.
dies or something bad happens with my family. But just being able to put the phone away and say, all right, this isn't controlling me. It's time to just go be at peace. I can't
Hmm.
remember who said, but the word is human being, not human doing. We're human beings, not human doers. And so sometimes we just need to be, whatever that looks like, and get quiet and just commune with God and nature and, all the things. So I think that's really important. And it's easy to stay together all the time, from a business perspective and family perspective. And we've also set some guide rails on us. Like I told my team, and we're in certain businesses where this works, but I'm like, evenings and weekends, you will not hear from me. I will not email you. I will not call you. Like, do not feel when you're home, you're home. When you're working, work. Like, be fully engaged when you're working, and when you're home, be home. And I think, once we got smartphones now, everybody feels like, hey, they can text you at, 10 p.m. on a Saturday to ask a question that's like, this could easily be handled Monday at 9. That's really good. Okay. What's some bad advice you heard along the journey as a business owner that maybe you acted on and you're like, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. That was just somebody giving me bad advice.
Bad advice. I probably would have to change that to maybe bad comments.
There
Or
you
I
go.
guess it can kind of, go in with bad advice. I didn't really take a lot of advice from anybody when I made this decision to divorce and move on with my life. I made that decision within myself, to be honest. Now, did I get a lot of bad comments? Yes. Even with people that used to work with us for many, many years, they thought I was crazy. They're like, Patty, you're going to mess it all up. You're going to lose it all and you're going to regret it.
Mm.
So, maybe sell off or consider, keeping, my ex husband involved with the business. And I said, no, I'll figure it out. Yeah,
I love
I
that.
didn't. Yeah. Even though within myself, I had those conversations of, let's just close it. Let's just get rid of it. But yeah, I remember they were like, you know what? You're going to ruin it and it's going to all mess up. And within the time that I took over GreyHawk, like a year later, my main bread and butter ceased operations from one day to the next. And I had very little other options. I didn't know any other companies. I was dedicated only to them. And that's whenever, somebody else came to me and was just like, you know what, just go find another job already. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that.
Put too much into it now.
I'm not doing that. One thing that we talk about, right? Company has debt. So I have always came from credit, money background, and that to me is so important. And I was like, no, I got to pay this stuff back. I'm responsible for this. So I got on LinkedIn and started doing my own sales.
Love it. That's
So
awesome.
I didn't quit. Yeah.
I think that's consistent theme when you're doing something hard is everyone's telling you you shouldn't do it. And we have
And mind you,
go
I
ahead.
did I did go out and do other things because I am an entrepreneur. And it consisted of a house cleaning business during this hard time. I worked for another company as well, helping them with their AR. So I had other things going on. Meanwhile, my company was taking a hit because I didn't want to close it down,
For
you
sure.
know?
Do what it takes. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. If you got to work a side gig, if you got there's going to be tough times. And also,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't fully align with Dave Ramsey, but I think some of the stuff he says is right. You got to have an emergency fund. And,
Yeah.
at first you can't, you don't have any money. And it's like, but then if you can sock away a little bit to get you 3 to
Mhm.
6 months for not only for your personal, but also for your business.
For your business. Yeah.
We've got a strategy now for all of our businesses where we pull capital out into a equities account that has a hedge strategy. So it can grow with the market, but that it has downside risk buffers. So it's better than a money market, but then you're not going to lose it all. And we've just said, hey, that's the way that if everything goes to heck, we can pay our people. And we'll figure it out in 3 to 6 months. If we don't, we're not that good at what we do. But we need to have that runway to where, if something does happen on a macroeconomic climate, we're in a good position. That's so good. Okay, I want to close because we're getting close to the end of the conversation. I want to close with 2 things. One is just kind of something that has really helped you, a book, a resource, a podcast, something that in the last 6 months, you're like, man, this thing changed my life or helped me either personally or professionally that we could give to our listeners. And then the other is a bit of wisdom to leave with our audience. And I want it to be specific to, I've used this on almost all the podcasts. People are a little bit sad and, hey, things aren't working and life is hard. What's a bit of wisdom to encourage somebody? So a resource and then maybe a bit of closing wisdom.
Resource. Well, one of my most important resources was my ex-husband, to be honest. He was my coach. And he didn't realize it during this entire time, but he was coaching me. I think being open to criticism and having emotional strength is something that is really important when you're trying to evolve. I read the book, The Psychology of Wealth. One of my VPs from Security Financial gave it to me. I think I was like 23 years old. I've read that book probably like 5 or 6 times in my life. And the most important thing I learned is you have to respect the money and the way it flows and the energy it brings in, because it is energy. And my company feels that. Like I go into my yard and I'm there with everybody and they feel that great energy just coming in and going out and customers talking to them. And it's not anything that's ever going to be given to you. You have to figure out how to find that.
That's so good. So find a mentor. Yours was your ex-husband.
My ex-husband, yeah.
And then understand how money flows. I think those are both really, really important when it comes to entrepreneurship. Patty, it's been a pleasure. This is going to help a lot of people, and I love hearing more of the story. And yeah, we'll have to do this again down the road, but really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
All right, we'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you liked this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.